Wow, it's like Rammstein. It's just a hi-hat open hit and then stomp on the hi-hat, you know. Yeah. And that gives it a little more vibe, you know. There's always so many different processes that I use when I'm writing. And I never know what it's going to be. Unless the song is complete in my head, it's done and I've made all the decisions in my head and I've played it a million times. This particular piece of music, I'm approaching it in a different way. So what that is that I'm writing it as I'm recording it. So I'm not going to go back and do, like I'm not going to do a demo of it and then re-record the guitars so they sound better. No. I'm going to spend the time, dialing in the tone now of my amp and making sure I'm going to commit to those sounds and then just go for it. When one section is done, I'm going to build upon it as the song grows. I did this with a couple of songs on my last record, Northern Lights and Technical Disabilities. I was really happy with the way they turned out, so having that experience in the past, I'm not afraid to do it this way again. So the working title of this track so far is just called Chunk and Balls, so I hope you're into it. Using 3 mics close on a cabinet, and I'm using a ribbon mic, a blue mic, and an AKG mic. The AKG is called a Perfection, I think, or Perception, and the blue is actually just a Spark. It's a lot like a 57, but just a little bit of a different vibe. And the ribbon is a MXL, so they're not super expensive microphones, but they sound good. So if it sounds good, it is good, right? That's the rule. So here are the 3 mics I'm using. This is the AKG, this is the ribbon, and this is the blue Spark. What I've done to make sure to try to get this in phase before I even had to listen to it was I took this tape measure and I measured from the grill cloth to where the diaphragm of the microphone is. And these all measure 2 1/4 inches. And they're all exactly 2 1/4 inches. Whoops, I just fucked that up. But 2 1/4 inches, yeah, 2 1/4 inches. And see, so what that does is it measures the distance it takes for the sound to hit the microphone. Even though our ears, you'll never, it's like micro milliseconds. But if they're the distance from on these diaphragms, if they're different from each other, then they're out of phase. So if it takes the sound from this speaker to hit this microphone after that microphone or before that microphone, they'll be out of phase. And when they're out of phase, it cancels out frequencies and you lose low end and you lose all the really quality sound of it. So when they're in phase with each other, they sound great, like what we have out there. I'm going to isolate them so you can hear exactly what they sound like. I muted the drums. The guitars by themselves sound like this. Okay, so what that is a blend of 3 mics all at the same volume. Just one mic. That's the ribbon. Sounds pretty cool. It's bassier, a little darker. Now, if I isolate just the blue mic, it's going to be more like a 57, a little bit more of an ice pick in the forehead. But I love it because it's got this like mid-range, kind of like if you were to hit a wah-wah pedal on and go like, it's all of a sudden you've got this frequency that is really desirable for me. Now the AKG, a little bit different. A little bit like of a scooped mids. It's more treble and bass. That's just the AKG. Now if I add the blue, you get those mids back in. That's keep the AKG on and then just add just the ribbon. That's just the AKG, here's the ribbon. With the AKG. Without, just AKG. With ribbon. A lot going on there because of the fact that when you have 3 mics together, you can build a larger sound than what you would if you just had 1 mic. Okay, so what you were listening to with those microphones, the guitar that I recorded the other day, that's all that Metaltronics amp there. I've got the master completely cranked, but then like the channel really low. So my power amp is working super hard, which that's what you want. Kind of the brown sound, the power amp really going for it. Bass is way up, mid's right in the middle. This is a mid shift. Click, 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 it chooses a frequency and then you can boost or cut that frequency with the mid. Treble's cranked, presence almost cranked, density is low end in the power amp, which gives it more balls. And that's pretty much the setting. There's a push-pull for extra gain. I'm not using extra gain on the rhythms because it really doesn't need it. It kind of clutters the definition of it if I put too much distortion. So I wanted to kind of clean it up so you can hear the notes definitively. All right, so we're going to talk drums a little bit. So you can see these MIDI notes here. This is triggering Superior Drummer. I think I'm using like the regular kit. It's a New York Avatar. When I was playing that riff, I just hear some drums. Now I grew up with drummers in my life. My brother Marty's a drummer. He's a great drummer. I grew up my entire life jamming with Marty in the living room with my parents with like earplugs in and shit. And so like I think I like a drummer. Drums are my favorite instrument. So I do realize when I approach this perspective of programming any drums, I approach it like I'm a right-handed person. I know that my right hand is going to be stronger velocity than my left, just of nature because I'm right-handed. So I keep that shit in mind when I program drums. You can always put your hits wherever you want to, but the velocity is what makes things real. Velocity is the strength of the hit. So if you have everything at 127, which is the top of the velocity, everything sounds like a machine gun. Nobody wants that. So that's why you have to do things at different velocities. So as you can see on these dots are a little bit lighter blue than these dots. These darker blue hits are at full velocities. The lighter the color, the lighter the hit. And you can see down here, these coincide with the light hits, so these are less velocity. We're monitoring velocity here. So these are going to be ghost notes. This is kick drum, this is snare, and this is another snare I put in the MIDI map so I can do ghost notes right next to the snare. And then up here is cymbals and hi-hats and stuff. This snare drum roll is a triplet feel. Now do you notice like I took the velocities way down on a lot of these hits, and I've actually, if we zoom into it, you see how these are not right on the grid? There's the lines of the grid. They're not right on there because nobody plays that perfect usually. So you want to randomize these hits so they're a little bit off, but they're so close that the human ear really can't pick it up, but it tricks your subconscious to go, okay, that sounds more real. When I built these drums, it was just like I kind of heard them in my head. So I always start out with like kick drum placement usually. And so we'll listen to it at half speed. It's like... Now to me that drum beat is dancing. It kind of dances because I can hear the riff in my head when I hear just the drums. That and there I love changing it up a little bit. So after that roll, you get the cymbal crash on the one, and then you get a hi-hat choke, and then a couple of cymbals crash out of it. It gives it a little more excitement and power and jump, you know. writing some of this stuff, I'm thinking, oh, this would be awesome as an opener, you know? It's like, oh fuck, I can see the lights are down, and then all of a sudden, fucking, there's some intro, like, you know, the fucking curtain drops, and then it's like, fucking party's started. It's really hitting the heart. Yeah, I'm feeling this, I love it, you know? I just start to get really excited about all these little details.